song of guilt. London in the 1920s was alive with the pulse of jazz. Its smoky clubs and dimly lit speakeasies offered solace to the lost and misfits, a place where the champagne flowed as freely as the secrets whispered in shadowed corners. Among them, the Velvet Note stood as a beacon for the city's night owls. The stage, draped in crimson velvet, was graced each evening by Ivy Sterling, the club's star performer. With her emerald green gown, bobbed hair that shimmered under the dim lights, and a voice that melted hearts, Ivy was the queen of the night. But behind her captivating presence lay a woman tethered to secrets of her own. Tonight, as she prepared for her set, Ivy felt an unshakable unease. The laughter and clinking glasses from the club outside felt distant, as though she were watching life unfold from behind a glass wall. As she brushed powder onto her porcelain skin, her mind wandered to Andrew Carlyle, the man who had stolen her heart and, perhaps, her better judgment. Where was he? The crowd erupted into applause as Ivy stepped onto the stage, her signature smile masking her inner turmoil. The first notes of Ain't Misbehavin' wafted through the haze of cigarette smoke, and her sultry voice enveloped the room. Yet even as she sang, her emerald eyes scanned the crowd for Andrew. His usual spot near the bar was empty. When the set ended, Ivy slipped backstage, her anxiety growing. She hadn't heard from Andrew all day, not since their heated argument the night before. "You're worrying over nothing," she told herself, but her gut said otherwise. Her fears were confirmed when the police burst through the dressing room door, their heavy boots and stern faces cutting through the haze of backstage chatter. "Ivy Sterling?" a burly officer demanded. "That's me," she replied, her voice steady despite the knot tightening in her stomach. "You're coming with us." At the station, the news hit like a thunderclap. Andrew Carlyle was dead. "Found him in an alley behind a gambling den," the detective said, lighting a cigarette. "Single gunshot to the chest." "What can you tell us, Miss Sterling?" Ivy's world tilted on its axis. "And what does this have to do with me?" she asked, her voice trembling despite her effort to remain composed. "Witnesses saw you arguing with him last night," the detective said, exhaling a plume of smoke. "Lovers' quarrel gone wrong, perhaps?" "We argued," Ivy admitted, "but I'd never hurt him. I loved Andrew." The detective raised an eyebrow. "Love doesn't always stop people, Miss Sterling, especially when money's involved." Carlyle was deep in debt, wasn't he? Ivy's heart sank. It was true, Andrew's gambling had spiraled out of control. She had begged him to stop, to walk away, but he hadn't listened. "I didn't kill him," she said firmly. The detective's skeptical gaze lingered, but he said nothing more. Released on bail, Ivy returned to her modest flat, which felt eerily empty without Andrew's laughter to fill the silence. She sank onto the sofa, her mind racing. The police believed she had a motive, but Ivy knew Andrew's debts ran deeper than they imagined. If she wanted to clear her name, she'd have to uncover the truth herself. Her first stop was the gambling den where Andrew had spent so many nights. The seedy establishment was a stark contrast to the elegance of the Velvet Note. Its patrons were a rough crowd, their eyes sharp and wary. Ivy kept her head down, listening to the conversations around her. "Shame about Carlyle," one man muttered, shuffling a deck of cards. "He owed the wrong people." Ivy's stomach churned. "Reckon it's a warning," another man added. "No one crosses the Sterling Syndicate." Ivy froze. The name struck a chord. Her surname was Sterling, but she had no family to speak of, no connection to such a group. Who were they? Her search led her to a sprawling estate on the outskirts of London. It belonged to Victor Sterling, a name whispered in fear among the city's elite. Victor greeted her with the air of a man who always got what he wanted. "Miss Sterling," he said, a smirk tugging at his lips. "What brings you to my home?" "I want answers," Ivy said, keeping her voice steady. "And what makes you think I owe you any?" he countered. "Andrew Carlyle was murdered," Ivy said bluntly. And your name came up. Victor's smirk faded. Andrew made a deal with my organization, he said, his tone cold. He thought he could gamble with the Sterling Syndicate and walk away unscathed. He was wrong. So you had him killed? Ivy demanded. Victor leaned back in his chair. I didn't pull the trigger. But let's just say we sent a message. Ivy left the estate feeling hollow. Andrew's recklessness had dragged her into a world of danger and deceit. But as much as she wanted to hate him, she couldn't shake her love for the man she once knew. Determined to clear her name, Ivy returned to the gambling den, this time confronting one of the patrons she'd overheard. You want the truth? The man said, glancing around nervously. Victor Sterling didn't kill Carlyle. It was someone closer to him. Someone with their own reasons. Ivy's mind raced. If not Victor, then who? Who? The answer hit her like a thunderbolt. Back at her flat, Ivy rifled through Andrew's belongings. Among his letters and gambling notes, she found a name scribbled on a scrap of paper. James Brody, Andrew's closest friend. Confronting James in his dingy office, Ivy's voice was sharp as a blade. Why did you do it? James paled. Ivy, you don't understand. Then explain it to me. James crumbled under her glare. Andrew owed me money, he admitted. A lot of it. When he couldn't pay, he turned to the syndicate, thinking they'd bail him out. But he just dug himself deeper. So you killed him? Ivy asked, her voice barely a whisper. James hesitated. He was going to sell you out, Ivy. Use you to settle his debts. I couldn't let that happen. Her heart shattered. Andrew, the man she loved, had betrayed her in the end. With James arrested, Ivy returned to the Velvet Note. Her songs carried a new depth of sorrow, each note a tribute to the man she had loved and lost. London moved on, but Ivy's world was forever changed. Yet, through her music, she found a way to heal one melody at a time. And though the city whispered tales of betrayal and loss, Ivy Sterling's voice rose above it all, a reminder that even in darkness, beauty could endure. Years passed, and the shadow of Andrew Carlyle's death lingered in Ivy Sterling's life like a specter. Her name became synonymous with soulful sorrow and haunting melodies. Songs like Shadows of You and Lies in the Moonlight propelled her to fame, her albums topping charts across continents. Critics lauded her ability to channel raw emotion into her music, but none knew the cost of her artistry. Every note Ivy sang reopened wounds she had tried to heal. Each performance became a battlefield, a space where she wrestled with the ghosts of her past. She poured her anguish into her music, but fame brought no solace, only a gilded cage. Ivy was alone, her heart too fractured to risk love again. At the height of her career, Ivy announced she would release her final song. The world buzzed with speculation. Why would a star so bright extinguish her own flame? Reporters pressed for answers, but Ivy remained silent, retreating into herself as she prepared for the most personal performance of her life. The stage for her farewell was set at London's Royal Albert Hall. Thousands of fans filled the grand auditorium, while millions more tuned in to the live broadcast. The velvet curtains rose, revealing Ivy in a flowing black gown, her once vibrant eyes shadowed with a sadness that captivated as much as it confounded. As the band played the opening chords, Ivy stepped forward, her voice trembling with emotion. This song, she began, her voice carrying over the hushed audience, is my goodbye. It's a piece of my soul I've held onto for too long. Tonight I'm letting it go. The song, Eternal Ache, was unlike anything Ivy had performed before. It began with a slow, mournful piano, the notes cascading like tears. I see you in the shadows, hear your voice in the rain. The love we had was fleeting, but the scars, they still remain. Her voice quivered, raw with vulnerability. As the orchestra swelled, Ivy poured every ounce of her pain into the performance. I gave my heart so freely, but you tore it at the seams. Now I'm left with only echoes of our fractured, broken dreams. The audience sat spellbound, tears streaming down many faces. The song wasn't just about Andrew. It was about the universal pain of loss, betrayal, and the struggle to move on. As the final notes faded, Ivy stood in silence, her eyes closed. The audience erupted into applause, but Ivy felt no triumph, only an overwhelming sense of release. For the first time in years, the weight she had carried seemed to lift, if only slightly. Backstage, her manager and friends tried to celebrate her success, but Ivy slipped away. She walked the dark streets of London, her heart heavy yet oddly light. The city felt different, as if her goodbye had allowed her to see it anew. Ivy Sterling never performed again. She retreated from the public eye, her life becoming as mysterious as her songs. Fans speculated endlessly about her reasons, but Ivy remained silent. Her music continued to resonate, each song a testament to the pain she had endured and the beauty she had created from it. It wasn't until decades later, when Ivy's final journal was found, that the truth emerged. The journal's final entry, I have loved and lost. My heart has been shattered and rebuilt, only to crumble again under the weight of its own sorrow. I gave the world my pain, hoping it might bring solace to others, but it has left me empty. Tonight I wrote my last song, not for the world but for myself. It is a song of goodbye to Andrew, to the life I once dreamed of, and to the woman I used to be. I will never find another love. My heart, though capable of immense passion, cannot bear to risk again. But perhaps that is my fate, to love deeply once and live forever in its shadow. Thank you, Andrew, for the joy you gave me, however fleeting. And thank you for the pain, for it made me who I am. I only hope that wherever you are, you have found peace. As for me, I'll carry the ache until my final breath. And when that time comes, I hope the music I leave behind will speak for me, telling the story of a woman who loved, lost, and sang her truth. Though Ivy Sterling faded from the world stage, her songs remained timeless. Each melody reminded listeners of the complexities of love, loss, and the indomitable human spirit. And somewhere, in the echoes of her music, Ivy Sterling's heart still sang.